Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Hello, feely humans. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the space for feelings, the space for talking about our mental health, because talking about our mental health reduces suffering. And that is the aim of life, reducing suffering, meeting people where they are, connecting, leading with our hearts, embracing vulnerability, all these beautiful things that connect us. I love you, feely humans. You are the best. And I just wanted to share some thanks, some gratitude. I posted just that I was struggling, had a kind of difficult last weekend, and you all kind of stepped up and were very supportive and kind and thoughtful and validating, and I appreciate you and I love you. So thank you for that. Today's episode is episode 71. I talk suicide awareness and the Faces of Fortitude project with my friend Mariangela Abeo. We talk about cross-narrative suicide awareness, why talking about our mental health reduces suffering, as I mentioned a moment ago, and Mariangela's amazing project, Faces of Fortitude. It's a suicide awareness project. Mariangela has been affected by suicide. She had a suicide attempt, and her brother died by suicide. We talk about all of that in this episode, and all of those experiences led to this beautiful and stunning work, which is the Faces of Fortitude, which really gets people talking about suicide, which I think is so important because it's a thing that impacts all of us. And a fun note is that tomorrow I will be one of those faces in the Faces of Fortitude. That's right, Mariangela, I tricked her into it. No, I'm just kidding. She was gracious enough to allow me to be a part of the project, and my face, my silly, stupid face, will be in the Faces of Fortitude, thanks to Mariangela. And so go check out Faces of Fortitude on Instagram, at Faces of Fortitude. Definitely give that a follow because it's beautiful and it will inspire you to be just in touch with your feelings. And then check out my face and comment on my face. My face needs comments. I want to engage with you there, so go check that out. I'm very thankful for Mariangela and the work that she's doing. Okay. Please rate and review the podcast. Rate and review You, Me, Empathy in Apple Podcasts and Google. Make sure you're subscribed, so every week on Monday, you don't have to go download the episode. It just automatically goes to your listening device. Make sure you subscribe, and make sure to follow You, Me, Empathy on Twitter and Instagram, at You, Me, Empathy. And I guess that's the last thing I'll say. Thank you again for being here. Go follow Mariangela at Faces of Fortitude on Instagram, and enjoy this beautiful episode with my friend Mariangela Abeo on suicide awareness and the Faces of Fortitude.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot The intent of Yumi Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. Yumi Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am honored to share feely space with photographer, suicide survivor, and creator of the stunning, gobsmackingly beautiful mental health project, Faces of Fortitude, Mariangela Abeo. Hello, Mariangela.
Wow, gobsmackingly. I've never had that one. Thank you.
I like to throw a little just fun sort of descriptors into my little intros for my guests. It's a good sort of writing exercise for me.
Well, I love that. Thank you.
Of course. I'm very happy to have you on the show, and I do mean it. I think the Faces of Fortitude project, which we'll get into, I think, later, is quite stunning. So listeners, if you aren't familiar with that project, go check it out on Instagram. It's quite beautiful and will make you feel a little less alone in the world.
Thank you. That means a lot that you feel that way about it. I don't. It's nice to hear when other people connect to something that I'm so personal about.
Yes, right? It's the best. Yeah. It's like the greatest feeling ever. Yeah. So we'll get into that. Thank you for being here. We always start the show with just a emotional check-in. How's your day going? How's your week been?
Let's think about it. I like to be thoughtful about those questions. My therapist is always very thoughtful about that. I ask her how she's doing, and she always takes a minute. And we don't always do that. I think it's really easy for people to go, I'm fine. I'm doing fine.
Oh my gosh, so easy.
Yeah. Today is good. This week was rough. I had a few curveballs thrown at me this week, emotionally and personally, both for the project and for myself, personally. And, I think I stepped away a little bit and took some time to really center myself and channel my inner witch and kind of use some of the earth to power myself back up. And, it was a little draining, but I'm feeling, I feel like I'm the type of phoenix that rises from things like that just a little bit more powerful. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good today. A little drained, but good.
Yeah. I know that feeling well. It is always so hard when we're in it, but I think looking back on those experiences, we're like, yes, I got through it. I'm resilient, and look at how powerful I am. I am a phoenix. It's a empowering feeling.
Yeah, my therapist kind of relates it to kind of my childhood and growing up, and I always had to be a survivor because I was the only person I could count on was myself. And so for so long, when I had those really deep, dark, horrible moments, I had to say, okay, you're stronger than this. You can do this. And I always kind of had to pull myself up. So now I know that I will get through these moments. It's just, in the moment, like you said, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot. And I do want to dive into what that means for you. I wanted to just give a little check-in for my listeners. Recently I wrote a piece on my blog just about medication anxiety, which is a thing a lot of us can relate to, but lately, so I have clinical depression, and lately I've been on 20 milligrams of Vibrid for about 8 months now, and initially sort of went well, and it's been going well, but I've been slipping into sort of darker moments, and I sort of described it as like I'm on this path, this running trail. I'm a runner, so that's how I sort of visualize it in my head. I'm on this path, and there are these sort of slivers of shadow that I'm running through, and it's not full blown like depression, but I'm still finding these dark moments that are troubling me. So my anxious brain is sort of saying like, well, do you need to be on higher dosage? Do you need to be on a different medication, and it's just like this sort of whirlwind snowball effect of anxiety. And out of that anxiety, I finally did book a new appointment with my psychiatrist to see what's going on. I didn't want to. I was sort of scared to do it. I didn't want to do that because, it's exhausting, medication, right. The whole experience of it. Shouldn't be, but it is. And that's where I'm at.
That sounds like a lot, but also really kind of exciting. I think it's a good exciting. It's scary, but it's like, look, you're making moves.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. The sort of self-hater in me didn't look at it from that perspective. But you're right. I am making moves, and I think that's maybe a former self wouldn't have done that. I certainly would have just, ignored it and bottled it up. So thank you.
Do you know how hard it is for people to make that move to like give a call to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and say, okay, it's time to do something?
Yeah.
That is a gigantic step. You need to be a little kinder to yourself there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how us humans can be so flippant about our own sort of experiences, but like so generous and open-hearted with others in our lives. So thank you for that validation. I do appreciate it.
Of course.
Well, let's jump into your story, Mariangela. I always kind of like to start off with the question of, give me, if you can, some seminal moments from your own childhood, your growing up, just moments that stick out in your brain as being pivotal in your own sort of mental health journey.
I was raised very conservative family, very Roman Catholic, Italian, 100%. I was the first grandchild. I was the oldest of 3 siblings. I was the example. So needless to say, the most controlled. I was also the one that had the most rules put upon me, the least amount of trust. This was the 80s, the 90s. Our baby boomer parents didn't know what AIDS was. They didn't know what, all of these things were happening, and the fear just kind of was dumped onto these children of the 70s and 80s. And I was one of them. And so I was in a pretty broken household already. Stepfather who raised me, who, I consider my dad, and mother who was pretty narcissistic and controlling. And, I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. I wasn't allowed to go to friends' houses unless they knew the parents. I just didn't really feel heard. I wasn't very validated. I did not have a relationship with my mom. Not close to my sister. My brother was 7 years younger, so he was just, kind of a fun thing that I could help raise. And started high school. High school was pretty rough. I was pretty bullied. I was, this was right before the grunge era. So wearing thrift store clothes wasn't cool yet. So I was teased for that. I was, I was 17, but I looked like I was 25, even though I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. I was pretty grown. And so I had a lot of very mixed messages from boys at school. It was, you're homely and you're ugly and you're, I was very bullied, but they were also kind of attracted to me. And it was a very mixed message, kind of weird bullying situation, right, which led to a sexual assault when I was 17, when I was a senior. And, I was a virgin. I was absolutely sheltered. I didn't understand what that meant. And I think that incident really took my mental health to another place. There wasn't anybody that acknowledged what happened. So I went to the administration and told the assistant principal what happened and used the term assault, and was told in private that they were 2 football players. And I was told that our football team was in the playoffs, and that it just wasn't a good time to bring something like this up.
Holy shit.
And that maybe we could revisit this in 6 months. And maybe you aren't quite sure what sexual assault is. Maybe you don't know. And I was made to shame. And, I was already so broken down and was not heard at home. And so I really believed her. I actually apologized to her.
Yeah.
I was like, no, right. Maybe I didn't know. I'm sorry. I tried to mess things up. I was very broken. And so I went home and I was feeling very panicked and didn't know what to do and felt horrible and shamed. And my mom had epilepsy and lupus. And I went to her purse and found all the pills and medication I could find. And I took all of them. And I didn't know my sister was home. And looking back, the amount of Dilaudid and medication that I took was horrible. I should have died. But my sister found me in my bedroom on my floor, called the ambulance. I just woke up in the hospital and they had pumped my stomach. And all I remember is telling the doctor what happened and falling in and out of consciousness, of course, and hearing my mom's voice talk to the doctor. And she was extremely embarrassed and kept trying to make excuses as to why I would do this, saying things like, she must not understand what assault is. I'm sorry this happened. I'm so embarrassed. I was definitely a wrench in her socialite world. And then there was a candy striper. I don't know how old you are, if you know what a candy striper is.
I do. Yeah.
It was back before privacy laws.
Sure.
And, the candy striper was doing volunteer work, was a cheerleader from my high school. And I'll never forget looking up at her because she was definitely one of my bullies and I was mortified. And she just kind of gave me this pitiful look and looked over at my mom and said, this kind of thing just doesn't happen at our school. Your daughter just doesn't have any friends. And I think she's just trying to get attention. And it was at that moment that I looked up at the ceiling and I was like, you know what? I'm never going to let anybody make me feel this way ever again.
Wow.
I like to say I picked up my Capricorn roots and I started to live out of spite and I started to live out of wanting to prove the entire world wrong. And moved out, learned to put on makeup, learned to be pretty, as I called myself, had several years of very promiscuous behavior because I was trying, it was very Freudian. It was very textbook. I was trying to find affection. I was trying to find love. Did lots of drugs. I'm so grateful that there was no Facebook. So grateful there wasn't social media. So grateful I didn't have a disease or didn't end up dead in a dumpster somewhere. I look back at my behavior and it was so reckless. And I'm very lucky to be here, but it was me trying to find something, trying to find some tangible affection. And that was it. And my suicide attempt was pretty evident in my family. I was in the hospital for a few days. My family came and saw me, and my 11-year-old brother saw me. And I think that in the suicide community, they talk about creating an option where there isn't one. And I think that the mental health journey in my life and in my brother's took a turn that day, because what used to be pretty untouchable, what used to be something that only happened in movies with really dramatic people, all of a sudden was tangible.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it wasn't talked about. It was, your sister is sick. She did something, but she didn't mean it. And it wasn't talked about at all. My brother needed some sort of explanation. He was 11. And I like the analogy of a window, that you're in this house and a window is built where there wasn't one. And I'm writing a book for this Faces of Fortitude project. And in the introduction, I write about how I shut that window and I became really staunch and wanting to live and wanting to be healthy in spite of what people thought of me. And I think down the road, my brother found that window again and broke the paint off and was able to open it and exit himself.
Yeah. And
I think, do I blame myself for creating the window? No, but that's what happens in our lives when we don't talk about it. And that's kind of how the topic and how mental health kind of entered my life in general.
Wow. I mean, first of all, my heart just breaks for the, the little girl who's trying to find her own identity and trying to, and in this household that you're basically, on your own essentially, and you find, and you come across just the validation of that, and like having the courage to go and say, look, this is what happened, which is
Right.
tremendously courageous. And then like you hear, like I've talked to other women who've been sexually assaulted, and the common theme is they are met with this type of just no validation whatsoever, just a vile, sickening reaction that just makes them feel so powerless and
Right.
that they did something wrong. And it makes me so fucking angry, and I don't understand why it
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
Have you thought about that, like specifically that like cultural thing, and like why does it happen? Is it sexism? Is it it's probably a myriad of things, but it just makes me so fucking angry.
I was just recently watching a great documentary on Netflix called Feminists, What Were They Thinking?
Mm.
And it's actually it speaks on this a lot, on how we were given, even the feminists, when they had this feminist movement in the 70s, they did things to ugly themselves. I don't know if that's the right terminology, because of what society was expecting from them. The Marilyn Monroes, the Marlene Dietrichs, the women that were flawless and that were unabashedly beautiful. And so the feminist movement stopped shaving, and they stopped wearing bras, and they, didn't wear makeup, and they were trying to change that. But I think it started just so many more years ago, as far as what was expected of females and the role that we play. And I think feminism tried to change it, but I think this documentary talks about the harm that it did, just because it created this opposite of, we're going to do the opposite, meaning this is not good. And so by saying we're going to not wear a bra, and we're not going to wear makeup, and we're not going to shave, we're going to tell you that this is bad, to tell you that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was
totally.
almost like an opposite stereotype, and it was sometimes harmful. And so now it's kind of, we don't do this to men. When there's a man that is disheveled or has a belly, but has a strong personality and a strong morals or something to say, we still listen to him. But when it's a female, we don't.
Yeah.
And it's strange. And it's something that I think females everywhere are trying to figure out for themselves, because I think the word feminist is not, it's not a good word anymore. And people don't like using it. People here in Seattle definitely don't like using it. It's just, it creates a certain look for you. And it's weird that we have to worry about that. But for me, it was always, you're not allowed to wear makeup because people are going to think you're a slut and you're going to have sex and be taken advantage of. You're not allowed to wear a short skirt because what would people think of you? And so that was just the mentality growing up. And it was so harmful, because then I felt that about myself when I was old enough to kind of have my own thoughts.
Yeah. You mentioned your mother being, maybe having some narcissistic traits. Did you sense that did you get that from her? The image thing, like we need to be presented as, whatever? Oh,
yeah. We were in a household where we were told that when company came over, we only speak when we're spoken to. And I was very body shamed. My mom, to this day, you will not see me wearing horizontal striped shirts, because I was told that I looked obese and huge in them, because the stripes did not flatter me when they went.
Your mother told you this?
Yeah. One of the reasons that I love taking photos of people when they're upset and making them look beautiful with my shadows and my lighting is because I was told growing up by my mom that when I cried, I looked like a witch. I look like the Wicked Witch of the West. And that was my favorite movie was The Wizard of Oz.
Amazing movie.
And so, of course, I hated that witch. And so she told me that's what I looked like when I cried. And so that was something that I even call it, if you follow me on Twitter, I will talk about something making me cry and that it made me ugly cry.
Yeah.
It's something I need to stop doing. And
Yeah.
it's because my crying is not ugly and nobody's crying is ugly. It's so powerful and it's so beautiful to process that emotion, but we just have to get out of this place where we talk down to ourselves. And my mom did that. And so I was raised, and when you say narcissistic tendencies, no, I believe that her face is under narcissism in the dictionary. Like it is extreme. It is horrible. We don't have enough time for the stories of my childhood, but I want to sell the rights to NBC at some point for a miniseries. It's a lot. I've had a lot of people go, you need to write a book, and it's a lot. And it's taken 7 years of therapy to really unpack it all. But
yeah, we don't have to get into all of it, but I just like I think I relate because I for 100% believe my father's a narcissist, and it impacted me in ways that I struggle with feeling like I deserve anything or love, and I feel like I'm a type 2 Enneagram, so I'm like giving everything to them because my place in his world was about serving what he wanted, right?
Yeah.
And how has that been for you, working through some of those things in therapy?
Well, so first of all, do you have kids?
I do not. I have a doggo and 2 horses.
Okay, so if that is ever a choice for you, that's actually a really great process. It was actually incredibly scary for me because I didn't want to become my mom. I didn't want to become my childhood and relive that for someone else.
Yeah, I get that.
But it was such a liberating, beautiful experience for me to break that cycle, to break that chain. In therapy, we have often talked about me being viscerally affected because being that type of person that is raised with a narcissistic parent, which inevitably means you weren't parented. You were not, as a child, you were not parented properly.
Right.
So now you're looking for that parenting by overgiving to everyone in your life. And it's exhausting. It's truly exhausting. So for a long time, the story of my therapist is pretty hilarious, but for a long time when we were unpacking, she would talk to me about how she could tell the change in me when I talked about her. And when I talked about those experiences, and she said, it's viscerally affecting you. Like, I can tell it's in your chest. I can tell it's in your face when the tension changes. And she started to make sure that I was aware of myself during those moments. And that, I was raised in a very, the baby boomers, you were talking about your dad like that. We were raised that no matter how you were treated, this is family.
Yeah.
And you had to serve your family. They were your elders. Like, you were responsible for them, and they were never accountable for the things that they did. And they never had to apologize. They never had to be accountable for their behavior because they were older, because they were elders or your parents. And looking back on that, that's not correct. And I've learned as a mom now to be accountable of my behavior. And, my daughter's 22 now, but growing up, if I fucked up, I told her. Mm-hmm. I said, that was really not cool of me. I'm sorry. I have never heard that from my parents.
That's so beautiful. And I love the image of you breaking the chain, because you're right. Like, culturally, there's still this thing that we have to, no matter what, respect our elders or mind them, which is such bullshit.
Oh, it's so traumatizing when there's abuse. And when there's abuse and we are constantly forgiving that because, it's my mom. No, that created such a visceral effect in me that I was having horrible nosebleeds and like high blood pressure at one point because she was being so toxic.
Oh my God.
And my therapist was like, so let's just see what she goes. I have never told a client to cut a family member off all the way. but I'm going to tell you to do that. We're going to try this and see what happens. Because I went to long story short, I went to the doctor because I was worried about my health. I was like, I'm having like intense nosebleeds every day. I have like a brain injury. Like I didn't know what was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, anyone would be worried.
I'm a curvy girl, so I thought, okay, he's going to tell me to lose 50 pounds, or he's going to tell me I have a cholesterol problem, or whatever.
Yeah.
And they did a full workup, and they were like, so there's nothing wrong with you physically. You're like a brick. Like you're great. You're actually great. You have high blood pressure, but not because of anything chemically.
Mm.
And there's something stress-wise that's bothering you. Can you think of what it is? And I was like, yeah.
My mom made me bleed out of my face.
Right. Basically. And so when I went back to my therapist, she said, let's just try. You're going to cut her off, and we're going to see what happens. My nosebleeds went away in a week.
Wow. That's remarkable.
She said she was venomous. It was venom. And there's a lot of great articles out there that I usually share around Mother's Day because it's such a hard day for me. And because it's love-hate, because I have my best friend is my daughter. And so but I don't have anyone to celebrate but myself.
Right.
And there's articles out there about how hard it is in society to cut off toxic family members, parents especially, because people don't understand it. And but it talks about your right to and how harmful it is when you don't. And I hold very tightly to those articles because they're very validating and very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I do too. And I 100% relate to that. It's been a long journey for me, but I've cut my father out of my life because it was just too much for me. It was too heartbreaking. He just hurt me again and again, and at a certain point we as humans need to, think about ourselves, create boundaries. Yeah,
the boundaries word is so huge. And people that have narcissistic family members that are people pleasers, that are those type that you explained, we have no boundary. I grew up with zero boundaries because my parents never had any with me. And so I didn't really know how to put those into place until literally like my late 30s. I'm only 44. Boundaries are a new thing for me, and they're incredible. They're so empowering. Yeah. But you have to say, like with your dad, you have to understand that like you making that choice is so powerful because it takes that power that they've always had over us away from them for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And it's pretty empowering and awesome if you think about it.
Oh, I agree. It's been hard, but yeah, I agree. It's been the best thing in my life, really. It's been a wonderful choice that I've made.
Yeah, I love that. I feel the same. And I feel like a lot of people are like, how long has it been since you've talked to your mom? And I said, it's been about 5 or 6 years. And they're like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm not. My life has been so much better.
Yeah. Do you ever get that, like a shame from others or like?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. All the time. It's so hard for people that don't have that toxicity in their lives to understand. And I have to give them the benefit of the doubt. My husband's a great example. He has amazing parents who have had a lot of dysfunction in their lives. A lot of trauma happened, but they've handled it very beautifully. And so his mother is just this anomaly, and she's incredible. I like to call her the mom that the universe gave me as an adult that I needed. And, she's known me since I was 21, and she's really raised me as an adult. She's been that mother figure as an adult for me, and I'm so grateful to her. But, he could never imagine not talking to his mom. He doesn't understand that. So when I said I was done, he was like, well, just don't use the final word. Like, just hold on to it. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, I know it's hard for you. And so I have to put myself in other people's shoes and say, I get that you don't know it because you haven't felt it. Just trust me. And he trusts me. So he's like, I trust that you're going to do what's right for you. But, he can't understand because he hasn't been there.
Yeah. Yeah. I get and this is the last thing I'll say on this, but you got to forgive them sort of speech, you get that?
Bananas?
It is a bit bananas. Yeah.
It's crazy making. It makes you go into these circles of guilt in your head, which they're not yours. It makes you have to feel the emotions that are someone else's responsibility.
Yeah.
Your dad has to take part of this, and he doesn't. There's this famous kind of ability of these narcissists to discredit and to say things never happened, or to say you're not understanding it correctly, or that's not how it was, or you're dramatizing it, or whatever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And not take responsibility for their actions, which causes, my therapist has told me, us to feel our own feelings of hurt, but also we have to feel theirs because they're refusing to feel it. So it's so much trauma for us.
Yeah.
To act for them, to say, no, you should feel this way because A, B, C, and D. Well, that's a lot of energy.
Yeah, no, totally. With my father, it was like, it was all about him, of course. And there was also a religious, sort of Judeo-Christian element to it. So it was, when he was being emotionally abusive or physically abusive, it was that it wasn't his fault. He was falling away from God. Right. It was, he just needed to be more like Jesus. He used to yell at me, what would Jesus do? And, sensitive, feely boy that I was and am, like I couldn't say anything, but in my mind, of course I was saying, well, not yell, I think is the proper response,
What would Jesus do? Not this, Dad.
Yeah, not this. Yeah. It's just, crazy making, as you said. I want to transition back into this suicide awareness stuff that you are so deeply passionate about and have been personally impacted by. After let's talk a bit about the years after your suicide attempt in high school. What did you start going to therapy then? What can you talk me through that sort of initial awakening?
Do you mean when did I start therapy, or?
I just mean like, after a traumatic event like that, you making that choice.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't go to therapy then.
Well, I mean, I want to get inside your brain a little bit and like understand your emotional state, like in the years following that trauma, that huge T trauma.
Yeah. I spiraled. I didn't get any sort of help. I mean, I self-medicated and I didn't do anything. I tried so hard to find myself. And I think I'm a firm believer in the universe, and I'm a firm believer that if you can process your pain as it goes and move through it, that the world is going to come up to meet you. And
that's beautiful.
So I ebbed and flowed with things in my life, and my real dad left when I was 2, and I wanted to go. I decided I wasn't heard, and I wanted to go and find him, and he had been in and out of our lives, so he wasn't unknown. So I went across the country and went and found him, and kind of did that 19-year-old or 18-year-old. Nobody's listening to me at home, so maybe you'll listen to me.
You needed some grounding.
Yeah. And so I went and found him, and it was all kind of roses and great flowers and awesome reunion at first. But I was still super reckless. And I think that kind of disrupted his home. He had started a new life, and I was pretty upset that I wasn't part of that life. So I had my own daddy issues, and I was vomiting them on him. And meanwhile, I was still being super reckless and promiscuous. And I met a guy, kind of a one-night stand, and was doing a lot of acid, lots of party drugs, and met this guy and knew him about 2 or 3 weeks and got pregnant. And it was interesting because I sat for a minute and thought, maybe this is the universe telling me to slow down. And so I decided I was going to keep it much against all of my family. And I told this guy who I barely knew, we were both just kind of super reckless and thought we were invincible. That I decided to keep this, and that I had dads in and out of my life, and he could be part of this if he wanted, but he had to decide now. He wasn't going to come in later. And he waited for about a week and said, okay, let's do this. And I said, but we're not getting married. I don't even like you. And our parents were pretty, they were pretty opinionated, but we didn't care. Both sides, they wanted us to, it was the early 90s. They wanted us to do certain things certain ways. And we were like, nope, we're going to do everything opposite. And then 6 months, I had the baby. That's Madison, who's 22 now. And when she was 6 months old, we ended up getting married because, you grow up a lot. 9 months of pregnancy, 6 months of having a baby. I like to say we grew into love. And now, we'll celebrate 22 years in April.
Wow.
So yeah, we did things very opposite. I actually started a parenting blog on the side about it because we raised our daughter opposite of every parenting book, every expert. We did everything opposite, and she's a fucking amazing badass.
Do you have a bit of pride in that?
Oh, so much. Like, she is the main reason I feel like a good mother and a success. Not any of my photography, any of what I do. She is like she should be number one on my LinkedIn qualities and skills. Like, that was me overcoming every single bad thing in my life. Like, that was me giving the ultimate middle finger to my mother.
Yeah, I think that's what I was getting at, is the rebellion. Like, I was very rebellious as a teenager because I needed to. Like, I look back on it in kindness because I needed to do that to establish something, right? How are you looking back on that time in your life today as a 40-year-old?
I feel so bad for that 17, 18-year-old, that 19-year-old that I needed something. I needed something so badly. And I think need is the great word. I was very needy, and I was very, I would do anything. Ask my husband, when we first met, I cooked for his friends. I'm 100% Italian, and that's something that I got from my grandmother, was cooking skills, thankfully. And I remember being so in love with him but not admitting it because he was an ass and I was an ass, and we were just both kind of in that asshole stage. And I just, in my heart, I knew there was something there. So I remember cooking for him, and I remember him telling his buddy, he was like, "Wow, I think I'm going to marry her. Like, look at this, what she just cooked for us." And I remember thinking, like, I don't think anybody else would do this for you. And I think that's a testament to who I was back then, is I would do anything for anyone. I had no boundaries. Yeah. I would unzip my chest and give you my heart if it made you happy and made you like me. Right. And it was looking back, it made me sad for me because I gave so much of myself. That growing up, when I was growing up with my daughter and helping her navigate the world of self-conscious and self-confidence, I was very clear with her about what she gave to people, and especially men or women, whatever she had decided she liked, and to not unzip anything and give anyone anything before you give it to yourself. And she grew up to be somebody so much more. Like, I like to tell people, I really want to be her when I grow up because she's grown up to be somebody that loves herself a lot in a great way.
What a beautiful gift you've given her, in that empowerment,
Yeah, I like to say, there's that quote that goes around every few years, that's be who you needed to be when you were younger. And I think I was that to her. I needed to be the mom that I needed to be, just to show that it was possible. And that, we all don't grow up to be our mothers. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so happy I didn't.
I am too. Talk to me a little bit about, I know that, your story, reading about it a little bit, another pivotal moment being your brother's suicide. Can you talk to me a little bit about that experience and how sort of that led and transitioned into your deep passion in suicide awareness?
Yeah. I think it deserves a little bit of backstory,
Yeah,
only
of
because
course.
suicide doesn't come out of the blue most of the time. There are flags that we just don't see.
Yeah.
Growing up with this mom and getting out of the house, and then my sister did the same, got out of the house. We kind of left our brother there, and she went from one type of narcissist to another, meaning she definitely, that was her baby. And so she had lunch with him every day and drove to the high school. And, he was the best thing next to sliced bread, which he was. But, as coming from the oldest in the family, he was definitely spoiled compared to me.
Yeah.
And, watching that transition was hard because I was watching her life implode in other ways, as far as rumored things happening, as far as affairs on my stepdad and things like that were happening. And then it all came out that she was having an affair with my dad, my stepdad's best friend, for 9 out of the 17 years that they were married. And this was the best friend of the family. So husband, wife, children, we spent holidays with. Like, this was the best friend. So she was found out when she was overseas, quote unquote, visiting him because he was a friend of the family. Nobody thought anything of it. I did, but I wasn't really listened to back then. So that was a pivotal moment for my brother. My mom went from seeing him every day to going to Greece and never coming home. And we all thought she was coming back, or they all thought she was coming back, and she never did. That was a trigger. And so do I blame her for his suicide? Absolutely not. I know better than that. However, do I blame her for triggering his mental illness? Absolutely. Absolutely. There was something dormant in him. My stepfather has, my brother was a half brother. So my stepbrother has schizophrenia in my stepdad's side of the family. My stepdad had a cousin that actually diagnosed schizophrenic that killed himself. Mm-hmm. And so that's in there. That's in the chemistry. And my brother started showing signs. So after my mom left, things got dicey. My dad was broken, of course. And my brother was kind of left to parent on his own. And he got into college. He got into Yale and went across the country to Yale, which we were all like, nice.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite an achievement.
There were definitely some red flags at Yale, but I tell people this in my sessions, we couldn't tell if he was having mental issues or if he was just smarter than us, which looking back, it was like, I went to college for 2 years. Like, my brother is at Yale and he's quoting these really almost eccentric, obtuse books. And I am not sure if he's babbling. I'm not sure if he's just super smart and I'm not getting it. So a lot of it was, okay, buddy, what's going on? This doesn't sound right. And then he's like, oh, this is just so-and-so writing about so-and-so. And I'm like, it's hard. It was hard. Yeah. So a lot of us family, because we didn't talk and we weren't a close family, and nobody talked about mental illness because Jimmy was going to Yale. Like, he was smart. We all had red flags that would happen when he would come home to visit, but we weren't sharing them with each other. So we all thought they were one-time incidents. And looking back, that was a huge problem. We should have been sharing these things. And he would do what oftentimes schizophrenics would do, even though he wasn't diagnosed. He would do resets. So about every 6 months, he would go on a trip somewhere. And then he would come home and seem fine. And he was so wise and so smart that he could get out of these mental conversations with us, or when we would try to get him help, he could get out of it and convince us. And at one point he took a trip to Peru, and he was starting to get really disheveled. And but again, it was also very beatnik and very kind of hippie, and he was
romantic.
Right. And so, there's nothing to it. And he came home and he was great. And he said he got a job in Atlanta working for AmeriCorps. And so we were like, okay, that's great. And he was working for an organization within AmeriCorps called Outward Bound, which basically takes at-risk youth into the wilderness and uses nature to help them. which we thought was a little ironic. I was like, well, shit, working with, at-risk youth, but maybe that's good for him.
Yeah.
And got a girlfriend, which I thought I questioned because he had questioned his sexuality several times. But it was great. He seemed super happy, but still very disheveled. He'd send photos and he looked a little dark and like dreads in his beard. But there was also like colorful yarn in his beard. And it was very, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was hard to decipher from far away. And I'm skipping tons of red flags and stories that I haven't told, that we just don't have time for. But anyways, he was coming home. He bought a ticket to come home. It was June of 2006. And he bought a ticket. He had just had his birthday. He went into his office building on a Sunday in downtown Atlanta and emailed me and my sister and just was like, I'm coming home. I'm so excited. I have my bags packed already. I'm excited to see you guys. And then something threw him off. Something happened in his email. We don't know what it was. And he had a psychotic break. And even the coroner, who didn't even know my brother, who was a Marvel superhero fanatic, said it looked like he was trying to fly. And he jumped out the window of his building. And so I was actually, and the hardest part mentally for me in this story was of course the fact that my brother took his life, but my husband and Maddie was 11 at this point, were on a trip and we were headed out of the country, and our flight was basically, the connecting flight was in Atlanta. And so the day that he died, I had a connecting flight through Atlanta, and we had quite a long layover. We were traveling with friends who looked at me at one point and said, doesn't your brother live here? You should give him a call, see if he wants to come to the airport for coffee. And my exact words were, he's kind of a lot right now. And I didn't, and he died 6 hours later.
Wow.
I had to process that in therapy, and I know that if it didn't happen that day, it was going to happen if he didn't get help. But I spiraled. My family that was already so broken broke into a million pieces. So that wasn't surprising. But I threw myself into suicide awareness, suicide advocacy. I started going to groups. I helicoptered people. So I became this wife that was always circling my husband, making sure he was okay, circling my daughter, making sure she was okay, circling friends. Are you happy? What do you need? Can I get you some pasta? Because I'm Italian. Can I get you a drink? Like, nobody was going to get sad on my watch ever. And it was exhausting. And after about 1 year of it, my husband was like, you can't, this is not sustainable.
Right.
Like, this is exhausting. You have to find somebody to talk to about this. And I didn't have insurance. I didn't believe in therapy. I was raised to not believe in therapy. It was weak. And I found a sliding scale women's only clinic here by my house that the women that were the soon to be therapists were trying to get their hours to get licensed.
Okay. Yeah.
So they were, practicing. They were, I guess, residents of sorts. And I remember making an appointment online, and she had like the sliding scale thing. And I went in just for a random appointment, and I walked in, and I'm kind of a cynic, but I will always give you the benefit of the doubt. And I remember walking in, and she's this like probably 26-year-old blonde hair, blue eyed beauty queen. And I'm like this chubby 37-year-old pissed off, grieving mom of, a 12-year-old. And so I kind of sit back in my chair, and I'm just like,
rolling your eyes.
What is she going to tell me about my life? You know what I mean?
Sure.
I was like, what the fuck? Well, okay, talk at me. And she blew my mind. She unpacked everything in about a month. And after a month, she looked at me and said, we need to acknowledge something here. We need to acknowledge the fact that you're a severe rape survivor. You survived a very abusive home. You survived your own suicide attempt that was severe. You survived the loss of your brother. And you have a successful marriage. You're an amazing mom. You have a job. You have a house. You're super high functioning for everything you've gone through. You're not giving yourself that at all. Like, you need to celebrate yourself for a minute and see what you have accomplished. And then we need to take this sadness and find a purpose for it and put it somewhere, this grief that you're processing, because you've processed it for everybody else, but not yourself. And she's still my therapist to this day, 7 years later.
Oh.
I was one of the lucky few that found a great therapist on the dot, the first try. But yeah, we've processed for years, and that's kind of how that's how my creative job started. So she said, you need to create, like, you are an artist. You did photography, you've done production of music videos, you drew in high school, like, you're a creator.
Yeah.
You need to find a place to channel this. And so I found a job at a creative educational company, which was so exciting and so great for me, but it still didn't feed exactly what I needed it to. And then all of a sudden, a woman came and did a lecture at this creative educational company that I was working at. And she was a wounded war vet from Afghanistan. She was a combat photographer. And the combat journalists, I guess, also they go through boot camp. They know how to use weapons, like they are in the service. And she was blown up in a car, and she had created a photo project called the Veterans Portrait Project. And she was traveling the world with her traumatic brain injury and her dog and her camera and telling stories of wounded war vets. And she did a lecture about taking trauma and turning it into something that can heal us, but also, in the meantime, it can heal other people.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit. And I was sitting in her audience, just kind of a seat filler. And I was like, I need to do this. And I hadn't picked up my camera for like 7 years. I was super amateur. And I went to her afterwards and was telling her about it. And she said, you need to do this. It's super important. And I was like, oh, I have an old camera. She said, perfect lighting, and it doesn't matter. And I said, I don't even know anything about lighting. I don't even have lights. And she said, you work for a company that does lighting classes. You get the classes for free. Like, take it. And I said, okay. And she said, the first portrait in this project needs to be of yourself. And I was like, shit, okay. And I took that portrait and I said, I hate portraits of myself. I hate photos.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you need to sit with a light, sit by yourself and figure out why you hate them and make yours different. And that's what I did. And I started lighting things because I hated how I cried. I hated how I looked. And I needed to light it to make myself feel more confident. And that's exactly what I did. And when I put it online, my self-portrait, it kind of exploded. And I started getting messages from total strangers about their suicide stories, whether they lost someone or they attempted. First responders were messaging me. It was so overwhelming. And I didn't expect it at all. It kind of blew me away. And I went to my therapist after about a month, and things were getting really intense. And I was getting so many messages that were really heavy, and a lot of people sharing things with me that I could not imagine sharing with other people.
Right.
I told her, I was like, I think I want to quit. And she said, okay, why do you want to quit? And I said, because people are giving me way too much information about their lives. And it's so hard for me to handle it and to like shoulder it and feel like they're being heard and really make them like validate them. It's too much work for me. And she said, it sounds like you're having boundary issues. I was like, sounds like you're having boundary issues. Like, I'm so mad. But she was so right. She said, you don't have to shoulder any of this. You don't claim to be a psychiatrist or a counselor.
Yeah.
Like, that's above, no offense, but that's offensive to me. It's above your pay grade.
Yeah.
You can give them help. You can offer assistance. You can give them a phone number or the name to a therapist. And then you draw a line and you don't take any more of it. You're taking it because you feel like you have to, but that's your own boundary to deal with, not theirs. And I was like, oh, well, okay, you're making your money. So, and that's kind of where it really took off.
Yeah.
After about a month, when I put some boundaries in place to kind of protect myself. And that was super helpful. So now it's just kind of, it's not smooth sailing. I still have quite a bit of bumps in the road that happen that throw me off. One this past week that was hard, but I now the boundaries are helping protect me from those a little bit, or help me process them a little faster.
Yeah. What a huge lesson that is, because I know that I get messages all the time from listeners and just people in the Yumi Empathy community, just not having a space and knowing that Yumi Empathy is that space, and I want it to be that space. And I think initially my initial reaction to that was like, okay, I do need to not heal, but I do need to do more than I'm not a doctor, so I'm just a silly boy. But I've learned that I can listen, I can relate, I can provide my own experience and say, hey, this is what has helped me, in a lot of ways. But
Right.
But yeah, we need to create those boundaries. Otherwise, we're just going to tear ourselves apart.
I mean, we have to know that we have to be our best selves to give what we can in these projects. And in order to
100%.
do that, we have to be able to take care of ourselves first.
Yeah. When it comes to suicide, I relate a lot to your story. I have a younger brother who has schizophrenia, and I've had my own experiences with suicide, suicidal ideation, and some really dark moments in my past. But what I'm struck by is when I was experiencing these, I was living in Wales at the time, and I was sitting in a ceramic bathtub thinking about it. I, of course, didn't tell anyone. This was just my sort of thing to hold on to, and it's such a I so feel for the people who are impacted by suicide, because it can be such a singular thing, a singular experience that's not shared. And how can you know? How can you pick up on that? And we probably blame ourselves, and we feel guilt, and we feel shame. But the reality is that it's so hard to know. It's a good reminder that we need to check in with people. We need to create safe spaces like you're doing with Faces of Fortitude, but it's so hard to know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's something that I've learned organically now with this project. And so this next year is 2019 is my year of starting to travel with this project. Hopefully, we're trying to make it sustainable, and getting on the TED circuit and starting to do some speaking events. And because I want to share what I've learned organically through this project in the last year, and that is there is something super tangible and really valuable in this cross narration that I've kind of not created, but it's just happening naturally. And it's, I had a woman that I did a photo of her that she had lost her dad to suicide 5 years before. And she was talking about navigating as an adult child her grief. And the next day I get a message from a man who's a 39-year-old father who says he has had severe suicidal ideation for the last 6 months. He has 2 young children, and he has refused to get help until he read Jess's post, and he realized what his daughters would go through when they got older, and he did not want to do that to them, so he was going to go get therapy the next day.
Wow.
That is why I do this. But then I realized that's a cross narration that I didn't think about. And there's something tangible there that we're not holding on to. Right now we're doing, if you've attempted, go to this support group. If you've lost someone, go to this support group. We're not talking across these experiences, because that's where you're learning something. We need to hear other people's experiences to validate us that are similar, yes. But hearing other sides of this epidemic is creating growth in people, and it's creating healing. I can be validated, but after a while, if I continue to hear people's stories that are just like mine, it just picks off my scabs. It's not creating the next stage of grief for me. And hearing from a young person that is contemplating suicide that is similar to my brother is so helpful to me, because I can change the way I talk to those people based on how I used to talk to my brother. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm changing the way that I see it. I'm changing the way my sensitivity in talking to people with suicidal ideation, because I've lost someone that way. And so my perception is forever changed. And it's happening across the board with this project, as people are like, oh, I didn't think about this side of it. And it's not shame, it's realization. Depression and suicidal ideation can give you tunnel vision, and it can make it so that you cannot see anything but not wanting to be here anymore.
Right.
And when someone else opens their heart and shows you their pain from another side of it, it takes you out of your head for a minute and makes you go, oh God, I could be causing this, or this could be the reason why I have done this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah, it's
fascinating.
It's such a really amazing point, and I think it speaks to this idea that we need diverse stories in our lives, like about all the things, because we as humans naturally like project our own narrative, and when we see other stories, when we hear other stories, we're reminded of like other possibilities, right? Yeah. And that's such an important part of our emotional growth.
It's huge, and I just don't see society currently doing that. We are making it almost like, if you look at other TED Talks and you look at other talks about mental health and suicide, we're talking about what is not there. We're talking about how the health and mental, like the medical side of the industry and health care is failing us. And we're talking about how we're missing things, and we're not talking about things, rather than just opening up discussion. Like, instead of shaming what we have, let's just do something else. Like, let's change the dialogue instead of rehashing what's not happening.
Yeah, I don't think something useful.
Yeah, I don't think it's helpful.
Yeah. Well, can you, speaking on that, like, can you talk I think it would be beneficial for the listeners to hear from someone like you regarding how we speak about suicide, the language of it, and how that can better destigmatize suicide.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just was having this discussion the other night over dinner with one of the faces in the project, because there is a lot of terminology that is harmful, and I'm going to very much admit that my safe space is not always correct in that way, because I don't want people sometimes around those grief topics, when people are talking about their loss, they don't have control over their words. And so I'm not trying to shame someone for saying it incorrectly.
Yeah, of course.
I'm also a victim of it. I think saying committed suicide is probably not the best terminology, because it's insinuating that committed like a crime or did something to themselves.
Right.
I use take life. My brother took his life, or ended his life, or made the choice to take his life. Some people disagree with the word choice. I do not. I think it's a really important word, because I think we need to give the power back to ourselves to show that it is our choice, but that sometimes we need to understand that it is our choice mentally, whatever mental state we're in. It is our choice, and nobody can take that away from us.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, especially when they're in mental turmoil, feel like they don't have a choice. And I think bringing that choice back to them and saying, you do, and you can control this choice, and you can handle this, and talking them through it. Oftentimes, especially in the field of mania or depression, you've got, in those arenas, it's a moment. It's just one moment that if you can make it, and that's, I think, the theory behind like DBT therapy, and like sense therapy, is that if you can make it past that moment, that 5 minutes or 10 minutes, everything changes. It's just making it through that moment. And I think that's where the word choice comes in to me. And so I'm not a huge stickler on the language, only because in my safe space, people are trying to process trauma. And so if I'm going to be hard on them for the language, it's taking the wrong thing from what their experience.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree with that.
But I do appreciate the language around it. And I think that there are a lot of people that feel very firmly, but I think we need to choose our battles with that one.
Yeah. What would you say to someone, and I've had conversations with total strangers about this, who would say that suicide is selfish?
I hate it. I hate it so much.
Doesn't it boil your blood?
It's so harmful, and I know where it comes from. It comes out of anger, and that's a part of grief, which I get. I've had people tell me in like circle groups. It's funny. I call those circle jerks because I just hate those circle grief groups so much. I
remember that band. I'm old enough to remember the circle jerks.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's not helpful. So I've had people tell me it's okay to be mad at your brother. And I'm like, what? I have never been mad at my brother, ever. I feel so much sadness for my brother because he wasn't seen and he wasn't heard. And now when I have people in my life that have mental struggles, which I do have, and that struggle severely, I give them the sight that they need, and I see them, and I'm present with them, and I listen in the way that I didn't with him. I'm just trying to change the cycle. That's all we can do. To show anger for someone, and I tell this to my daughter all the time when she's angry, it's such a waste of your energy that you could be putting somewhere to help yourself.
Yeah.
It's just, I know that it's a valid thing and you are allowed to be angry at somebody and you're allowed to process your grief and anger, but it's so easy to be angry at somebody that's not here instead of being angry at the reason why these things happen, or the fails in our system, or the flaws in our discussions and our circles. Like, why not show the anger by being productive and promoting a different type of conversation?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an asinine thought to be angry at the person who did it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, we'll transition right now into the project Faces of Fortitude. I just want to say again, like, it's such a beautiful project, and I commend you for creating that safe space because, as you know, Mariangela, there is a need, a huge need for these safe spaces around mental health. And I know, and growing up, I didn't feel there was any space like that to have, and you certainly didn't. And to take your experience and to pour it into this creative passion to create these safe spaces is the most beautiful thing that we can do as humans. And I just commend you for that. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about Faces of Fortitude. Just explain to the listeners. I know what it is, but explain to the listeners what it is and all that stuff.
Well, Faces of Fortitude, again, started with my portrait, and then a few people asked me to take photos, and I really thought, I'm going to take like 5 or 6 photos, and then that'll be it, because I'm not a professional photographer. I've learned to own that title now, but I didn't before. I still use a 10-year-old Nikon, and lights and gear that was gifted to me. Like, I'm not a tech geek photographer with a bunch of money. Like, I just don't. That's not me. And all of a sudden, I started taking photos of people that I had never met before. Thankfully, I'm a very organized, very thought process person, and I'm all about safety. So my vetting process was put into place very quickly. I don't choose everyone that contacts me. I'm trying to be safe for myself and my own triggers. But I've shot over 120 people and not shared their stories, shared their faces, showing that it can be any face, and then shared sound bites from our discussion. So basically it's a 1.5 to 2 hour photo session where it's just me and the person, and it's about the discussion between two people about suicide. And so the photos are an afterthought. This is not a photo shoot. This is not something you get your makeup and hair done for. And if you do, most likely, I'm going to tell you that it's not a good fit. Like, that's not what this is about. This is about a conversation between two people sharing their stories, sharing their grief, and then learning from each other. Oh, you grieved this. I've never thought about doing this for myself. That's amazing. And I put that into my toolbox. And then I tell them what I did for myself, and they put that into their toolbox, and we're healing together for 2 hours, basically. I share my entire story, lots more details than I shared here, with people, and that I get vulnerable first. And that usually opens people up to their own vulnerability and to share their story with me. Yeah. My camera's on a tripod with a remote, and I take photos as we talk. And I usually stay away from the camera most of the time because I really want to look somebody in the eyes and talk to them about this. And that's the first part of the project. And then the second part of the project is when their photos are released and they have the power, they're empowered to share that story in whatever capacity they're capable of at that time with the world. Some people are everything out there. I want to be tagged. I want to share. I want to name names. I want to do all the things. That's their prerogative. I don't do that with my project for legal reasons, of course. But then there's some people who don't want to be tagged, who saw it as just something that they want to do for themselves, but aren't ready to talk to their family about things. Some things are said in private to me that have never been heard by anyone else. That's the reason I don't tape. I've had a lot of people go, why don't you videotape your sessions? Or will we ever see a documentary? And that might happen at some point, but I'll never videotape or audio tape my sessions.
I see.
There's a very important part of this that people feel like they can literally share anything and it's safe. And there's not going to be a recording floating around of it somewhere. I think that half of the trauma that I've heard in that room or in any room that I've used has been because there hasn't been proof of it later. Mm-hmm. And that's very valuable to me, that trust. And I would never break that with people. So I take notes, and I have notebooks, and I've gotten hand cramps because I literally take handwritten notes of quotes during our conversation that I feel like other people are going to relate to. And I don't post anything unless it's approved and we go through it at the end together. I have had a few instances of people having what we call vulnerability hangovers. And because of this, it's been hard for me because I like to only approve quotes the day of the session. If I give you too much time to think about it, your mind will change most of the time.
Sure.
So it's in my contract and it's in the release that, this is when we do this. If they come back and they're like, this is really important to me, I really don't want to share this, then I will absolutely honor that. But people's vulnerability hangovers can make it really hard for me because I get that it's hard to share with people. And so I try to honor that with them. But at the same time, I put so much heart and soul and my own money, I'm not getting paid for this, into this project that when people question it, it makes it really hard for me, for my heart. But I got to take my ego out of it is what I've learned.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds so amazing. And I wonder if part of your goal or one of your goals is to, obviously you're creating that safe space and giving those people opportunities to be vulnerable, but is there a part of you that wants to inspire more vulnerability in these people to take into their, maybe this is their first time really being fully open about this stuff, and maybe this experience with Faces of Fortitude affords them maybe the opening to do that in their own personal lives, with their friends, with their family. Is there a hope for you in that?
Yes, I think my hope is twofold here. My hope is that my project, their photos, their photo session, their posts can be used as tools to start conversations that they might not have had the courage to start. I think it's really, it's helpful to be able to say, hey, Mom, I did this thing. Here's this picture, and I really want to talk to you about this. I think somebody is doing a very similar project. Michael Hebb, who's a face in the project, actually is doing a project called Let's Talk About Death Over Dinner, and talking about the rights of death that people want to have, but they're afraid to talk to their families about. And so I think oftentimes we need a tool to help us. And so I'm hoping that my project will be that tool. I have to say that part of the reason I do this project is not, it's for that reason, but also some of it is super self-serving. Like I get, and I have gotten so much from this. It hasn't fed me literally, like I'm not making money off this, and I never want to. I'll make money off telling my own story. That's fine. But faces, the actual project and me taking photos will always just be a passion for me because of what I get from every session. Like I have learned so much about the resilience of people. It's every time I think I've heard it all, I hear another story that blows my mind. And that makes me go, oh my God, you're a superhero. I can't believe you made it through this. That does something to a person when you hear it. It gives you hope. It gives you power to want to do that in your own life. Absolutely. To overcome something. It feeds me so much more than people realize. I get people that kind of hero, like they give me these accolades and I'm like, no, like these accolades are definitely more deserved by the people that have the courage to share these stories with me, because I am getting so much from it. I'm like literally soaking it in like a sponge.
Yeah. Yeah. I relate to that 100%. I get so, I mean, I started Yumi Empathy because, I didn't have the safe space and I needed a safe space. It's as much for me as it is for my guests. And I'm so grateful for that.
Well, I think we're two of a very small pond of people trying to make a difference in the mental health kind of arena, mental illness arena. But I always get messages from people going, I want to start an account like this, or I want to do something like this. Can I? Which I think is hilarious.
You can.
Like, I do not hold the rights to any of this except my name and my photos. Please bring your thoughts to the arena. Like, bring your projects. We need more. Yeah. We can never have too many.
Agreed.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing, and I again, I think it's so admirable that you're doing this Faces of Fortitude project, and we will plug that stuff at the end. We always kind of start wrapping up the show talking about empathy heroes. These are people in our lives, either alive or dead, or people of fiction, characters from novels or movies, any sort of person that is a great empath and someone who embraces empathy. I'll go first to give you a moment to think on that. My empathy this week is an author, J.M. Coates, who wrote this quote that I really like. Says, quote, "Truth is not spoken in anger. Truth is spoken, if it ever comes to be spoken, in love. The gaze of love is not deluded. It sees what is best in the beloved, even when what is best in the beloved finds it hard to emerge into the light," end quote. And I love that. I think we were talking about anger earlier, and it is a valid emotion, but most of the time it's not that useful. And what is useful is love, is opening our hearts and feeling the discomfort of suffering. And in many ways, we learn the most in those experiences in love. And that's what Yumi Empathy is about. That's certainly what Faces of Fortitude is about. And so that is J.M. Coates, the author, is my empathy hero this week. How about you?
Wow, you have weekly ones. I need to work on that.
Well,
I haven't done this before, so I'm new.
Yeah.
I would definitely say that my empathy heroes are my husband and daughter. Like growing up in a family where there were so many limitations and there were so many, it was not unconditional love. It was so conditional and there were so many rules. For me to love you, you have to do A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
And I have two humans in my life that have proven the exact opposite to me. Sure, they have flaws. We all do. But the important thing is they've never hidden those from me. And so they have been so supportive of my project. And I helped my husband when he had his rap career. I was his manager. I helped, our daughter by being a dance mom get the career of a lifetime. And so now, as I'm doing this, they are my biggest supporters. They are liking my posts, commenting, texting me saying how beautiful today's was, cooking me dinner, picking me up, helping me with my gear. Like they are being I get texts saying, I'm so proud of you after an event that I've spoken at. That means the world because I never would have gotten that growing up. And they are not afraid to show me that they're proud, but also they're not afraid to show me that when they struggle. And I think that's the base of empathy, is saying, I feel you, I'm hearing you, I see you, and I'm going to let you see me. And I think love is so two-sided that way that sure, we can get people with perfect Instagram lives and perfect friendships that don't show us when things are ugly. But I don't personally trust things like that all the time. I need to see that somebody can lower themselves. I recently heard a quote that says power is given to people that can lower themselves to pick it up. And I think that I get that from my husband and my daughter, that they lower themselves to pick me up when I need to. And they allow me to see them at their low points too. And I get strength from that.
Beautiful. Yeah. And so I'm so happy you have that in your life.
I feel very lucky.
Yeah. Well, Mariangela, where can people connect with you and learn more about your Faces of Fortitude project?
Yeah, I think, Instagram is kind of the place to be, is what the kids say. Wow, I just aged myself. But it really is.
Those damn kids.
Right. It's the place that my project really exploded. So I like to tell people that Instagram is the best way to get a hold of me. As much as I do have an influx of a lot of followers now, I am very active. So I respond to every message. I like to engage with people daily, and it's a great place to connect with the other faces. They're all so active. It's so great. Facebook is great. It's just a different generation of people is what I'm realizing.
Yeah.
But I am on Facebook. So it's at Faces of Fortitude on Instagram, Faces of Fortitude Portraits on Facebook. And then facesoffortitude.com is my website, which is I would say we're at about 80% there. You'll be able to find the blog, which is where the faces of the project actually share their stories in their own words, which I think is super valuable. You can find where I'm coming as far as speaking events. You can ask me to speak at your event, contact me to be a face there and start the vetting process. So those three places are probably the best places to get a hold of me.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much for being on You Me Empathy. I really value what you're doing in the world, and it's so essential and needed and beautiful. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It was an awesome discussion for sure.
Of course. And to you listeners, I'm here, you're here. We're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You Me Empathy.